Welcome to OLC 40. This is class number 4. We are working on Unit 1, and I am Jillian Percy. Here is some of the ways you can reach us. Radio, fax, Facebook and YouTube are the same, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA, and my email, jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. Okay. I wanted to go over one of the assignments. I got some questions about the assignments we did last day, and I wanted to kind of review it and make sure it made sense. So this is the lesson 2 mark sheet. Lesson 2 is really all about chapter 1, just chapter 1, not the whole book, just chapter 1 in the novel called Jimmy Comes Home. So we had an assignment we had to do before reading. We had assignment 7 that we did during the reading. Then we had to read chapter 1. And then we had to do an assignment after reading, and then a journal kind of reflecting on the whole process, okay? So we kind of did it all in one chunk, but it may have been kind of a little bit too much information, so I wanted to go back over some things. So assignment 8 was about answering some prompts after you read. There was 3 big groups. There's asking question prompts, finding the main idea prompts, and prompts that are about thinking about the text. And they've got these little dot, dot, dots. The dot, dot, dots are where you would add your own words or your own ideas. You do not have to do all of these. You get to pick whichever 3 you want. If you look at one and it makes no sense to you, don't pick that one. Pick one that seems easy to you, right? We're not trying to make things hard for ourselves on purpose. We want to pick whatever is easy. So let me see here. Choose any 3 of the after reading prompts above and answer them. Make sure you choose questions that you feel comfortable discussing and provide as much detail as you can for each answer. Use RAPROC where appropriate, right? That was just kind of a little acronym to help us dig in deep to answers. So I kind of redid these a little bit bigger so people could see them and just kind of showed you. There we go. Okay, so asking questions. What does the author mean by something? So if there was something that confused you, this is where you'd put it. What did the author mean when he said, you know, the main character was feeling really confused? It seems so obvious. Or why did somebody do something? Why didn't somebody do something? Whatever it was. What have I learned? I wonder if this is kind of like an imagination question. Like if you are like, oh, this problem could all be solved if only they did this, or, you know, I'm finding that character really confusing. I wonder if they're thinking this. This does not always appeal to everybody. If it doesn't appeal to you, if it's too open-ended, don't pick that one. Over here, we've got thinking about the text, okay? The message of this text. What's the main message they're sending in chapter 1? The purpose of this text. These are very similar. Purpose might work better if you were doing informational stuff. These ideas relate to, and you can put whatever you want here, because of whatever other idea. So like, these ideas in chapter 1 relate to some things I've seen in my own community because, and then you'd explain. This text may be biased. Biased is like another word for prejudiced. If you felt like there was some prejudiced stuff, this is where you would have a chance to discuss some things that you thought were prejudiced. This text doesn't deal with, sometimes a story or a novel may be very one-sided. Maybe it only looks at things from the woman's point of view and doesn't look at it from the man's point of view. Maybe it only looks at things from a child's point of view and doesn't look at it from an older person's point of view. And sometimes it can seem very lopsided and almost inaccurate because they've just forgotten like part of the world, basically. If you felt like that was happening, this is a great one to have a chance to discuss that. Find the main idea. This can work in an informational text, but it can also work in a novel. The most important thing I remember about this text is, well, what do you remember about chapter 1? What did you think was the most important part? The main message is, okay, what's the writer trying to convey in that first chapter? What's their message they're trying to get across to you? The text was mainly about, okay, what did you think it was about? Really, it's just different ways to kind of ask the same thing a little bit, to be honest. Clues, words, and features that helped me understand the text were This is one I find is really good for informational. Like if there was diagrams and there was photos and there was little sidebars. I don't feel like it works as well for a novel, but maybe it works for you, in which case, by all means, use it. So these little dots, dot, 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 it means they want you to finish the sentence with your own ideas and words, okay? They're basically giving you kind of the beginning of the sentence and they want you to finish it. You only have to choose 3, pick the ones that you think are easy, right? And we all have different brains. We all think differently. One that seems easy to me might seem hard to you, and the other way around, okay? All right. So some of the prompts are expecting you to look at the story, at the text. Others are expecting you to make connections and to imagine possibilities. So do whatever prompts work best for you. For example, I wonder, this is a great one. If you want to imagine upcoming events or discuss character motivations, the text was mainly about, this is a great one to use if you just want to summarize the main events. You don't want to imagine anything. You don't want to think about the future. You just want to use what's right there. Different people have different preferences. That's fine. Okay, assignment 9. I wanted to talk about this. It's a bit complicated, okay? But they're trying to make it easy for you. Basically, they want you to do a journal entry about your learning. It's 15 marks and it's 3 paragraphs. So each paragraph is getting 5 marks. They've asked a bunch of questions, and that's because they're trying to give you some ideas for what to write about in the paragraph, okay? So just kind of rereading here, it says, you have just read chapter 1 of Jimmy Comes Home and have done some reflecting and writing already. For this assignment, your task is to identify the behaviors and attitudes you need to promote your own learning. You are to write 3 paragraphs based on the questions and information below. Each paragraph should be at least 5 sentences in length. Use the information in the sections below to help you organize each response. So this is happening after we read chapter 1 of Jimmy Comes Home, but it's not really about Jimmy Comes Home. It's really about you. And they're trying to get you to kind of think about yourself, think about how you learn, and basically think about how can I tackle this course and be really successful, right? I know a lot of students, this is the one course they're needing to just finish and graduate. So, I am on your side. I want you to be successful. That's why I'm kind of going through these assignments so carefully. So in paragraph 1, in order to promote your own learning, that is to help yourself learn, you must be an active participant. What does this mean to you in regards to this course? Do you feel like you are an active participant? Explain why you feel like you are or are not an active participant in this course. Include any difficulties you may be experiencing, and also any ways you feel your teacher may be able to help you participate more actively. All right. Paragraph 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in your ability to improve your literacy skills? Reading, writing, speaking, etc. Comment on any barriers you feel may come across on the way to improvement, and be sure to talk about how your teacher can help you feel confident in your ability to improve. Paragraph 3. In order to promote your own learning, you have to be persistent or determined, and you have to practice your skills. You also need to be willing to reflect on your learning process and learn from your mistakes. Use the ideas in the preceding paragraph to talk about your own persistence, practice, habits, willingness to reflect, and learn from your mistakes in this course. Okay. So, sample journal entry for assignment 9. If you had trouble doing this assignment, remember that you can take the time to brainstorm each paragraph and then write your sentences. Tackling one paragraph at a time may work a little bit better than trying to tackle the whole thing at once. That might be just kind of overwhelming. So sometimes that can really help to do the brainstorming first, because then you can spend your time thinking of ideas. And then afterwards, you can think about how to put it in a good sentence and think about your spelling and think about your grammar. Again, it's a lot of things to hold up in the air, kind of in your memory as you're working. If that's complicated, split it up. That's fine. That's how a lot of people do it. So paragraph 1 is about how to be an active participant, and then reflecting on whether you're taking the actions that would make you active. So a good way to start thinking about this paragraph is thinking about what are some of the ways you could be active in this course. Here are some ideas to get you started. You could call in during the Zoom lessons, or you could email the teacher with questions. Or what are some other ways that you could participate in this course that would help you be successful? And then when you've thought of at least 5 ways, think about, are you doing these actions? So no, I'm not really calling in during Zoom lessons. So maybe that's one way I could improve. Emailing the teacher with questions. Yeah, I did that once. Okay, great. So if I'm understanding things, that may have been enough. But if I'm still feeling confused, maybe I need to email more often or phone, right? So here is, we've got the notes. These are just a little jot notes. They aren't a full sentence. They're just an idea. And then we're going to turn them into a sentence, okay? Sometimes people try and turn them into a sentence by just doing this. They just kind of take their pencil. Oh, here's my capital. Now it's the beginning of a sentence. There's a period. Now it's the end of a sentence. A lot of times our jot notes are deliberately short to get the main idea across. Just try to turn the whole thing into a sentence. It may not be grammatically correct. And even when it is, it may not be the greatest of writing. So I'm going to ask you to take the time to spend a little bit more time to try and turn it into a good sentence. So here's an example. One way I can be a more active participant is to call the studio during Zoom lessons. And I'm going to make a correction while I'm here, just because it's a good idea to get in the habit of making your corrections. It's still the same idea. I just made it into a longer sentence, okay? I can also email the teacher when I have questions. Again, same kernel or thought I've got here, but I turned it into a good sentence. This is not enough, by the way, and I don't expect to see everybody copy this. This is just me trying to show you how to turn your notes into a sentence, because that's really tricky for some people. So I wanted to kind of give you an example of how to do that. All right. We have a lot of grammar that we've got to review. So we're just going to take a little tiny portion of time right here to walk through some grammar, okay? Adverbs. Adverbs describe how a verb happens. Sometimes one adverb can describe another adverb. They tell us where something happens, when it happens, why, and how we do something. How is a really common one. Adverbs that tell us how we do something are called adverbs of manner. Okay. Wanted to kind of do a quick review of these. Oh, let me see. Gotta grab my selector button. See if I can pull it up. Oh, did
Switch to Chrome to load your favorite sites fast, so you can browse with ease. Fast, safe.
Well, we may have to do it another day, because I think I forgot to get my sound turned on properly on my screen. Okay. So we will skip over that and tackle that tomorrow, I think. Okay. So all of lesson 2 was just about the chapter 1. That's really all it is. Lesson 3 is 82 marks total. And there is, as always, 5 different assignments. The first assignment is called What Do People Read? And it is worth 10 marks. There are a variety of forms of reading and writing, of course, that we come across each and every day of our lives, from text messages to directions to essays and novels. Take time to brainstorm a list of at least 12 things you are required to read during your time in high school, and other things that you and other people read. You can include the types of reading that are mentioned in this question already, like hint, hint, essays and novels, but do not limit yourself. If there's any kind of written words involved, it is reading. So just kind of mentally walk through your day. Did you read anything at the house this morning? Did you read anything at work? Did you read anything while you were at school, or when you were over at a friend's, or when you were playing games? A lot of times we do reading so automatically that we don't even notice that we're doing it. All they're really asking you to do is take a few minutes to notice what you do, notice when you read, and mention 12 different types. So like an essay is one type, a novel is another, a newspaper might be a third type, right? We're not looking for the title, we're looking for what type it is, okay? Just see if there's more. Yep. In a paragraph containing at least 5 sentences, comment on the types of reading that you do away from school. Also tell me, do you like reading? And if so, why? What do you like about it? And if not, why not? What don't you like about reading? It's okay, by the way, to say you don't like reading. That's not going to affect your marks at all. I just kind of want to know. That's all. All right. And here are my notes on how to do that. Part 1, 5 marks, 12 types. Oh, is it 5 marks? Oh, yeah, because part 1 is the cloud. Think of 12 types of reading. So, for example, you wouldn't write the Sioux Bulletin, but you would write newspapers. Part 2 is the other 5 marks. Write a paragraph of at least 5 sentences commenting on the type of reading you do away from school. Do you like reading or not? If you do like reading, explain why. If you don't like reading, explain why as well. There's no penalty for not liking reading. It does not matter as far as that goes. If that's how you feel, it's fine. Sometimes, though, when you tell me why you don't like reading, it can help me figure out ways to make reading more interesting. All right. Assignment 7, the news report. So now we're moving on from talking about chapter 1, and we're kind of going to learning about another type of writing, basically. This one is worth 15 marks. Also, this assignment mentions we have 10% of your mark is based on a portfolio. That comes up in lesson 20. But one of the things you want to make sure is that you hang on to all your assignments because you will need them for lesson 20. You need to make a portfolio. Your portfolio can be a binder, a digital folder, whatever works for you is fine. One of the things you'll need to do for this portfolio is create a news story or like a news report. Most news stories or reports follow the same basic structure, what they call the inverted pyramid right here. So the points on the bottom, the big parts on top. You already use this structure all the time in talking, but you probably didn't know how to name. For example, when you call or text a friend to tell them something about something going on, you almost always begin by giving the most interesting and important details first. The least important details and information usually comes at the end of the conversation, and sometimes you do not get to that until a follow-up conversation. So that is the inverted pyramid. Important details first. So information that they must have for your communication to be considered successful goes right up top. It's the very first stuff. Information that could be helpful, but it isn't crucial, could go in the middle. Things that it would be nice, but it wouldn't really affect their understanding much, go at the bottom. One of the reasons for this is when newspapers sometimes will cut a story. So the writer makes sure to put all the important stuff up top so that if a couple of sentences get edited out to make room for something, they haven't lost the important information. It says crucial info must go at the beginning. They could stop reading it at any time. That's the other thing. Sometimes people just look at the first few sentences, read that, and then they move on. So writers try to make sure they've put the important stuff right up at the beginning so that people get the most important information. This is called the lead. The lead is the first paragraph, the opening, first sentences in the paragraph, the opening 2 or 3 lines. It usually summarizes the facts of the news report in order of most newsworthy or most important to least newsworthy. The reader should know just by glancing at the lead what the report is about and what the emphasis is. The lead usually contains answers to the 5 W's and the H. Those are the question words. So for example, who, they'll name the subject of the story. The who can refer to a person, a group, a building, an institution, a concept, a contest, anything about which a story can be written. So the topic, what is the action taking place? What's happening? What's going on? I just repeated that up here so we didn't lose them. When tells the time when the action is happening. If there's a contest, you need to know about the deadline. If there was war declared last night in Ukraine, then they need to know when it happened, right? Time is usually an adverb or an adverb phrase. It tells you about a verb. So for example, it could be something like tomorrow, last week, next summer, in the winter. Those are all adverb phrases telling you about the time that something is happening. Where Where is the place the action is happening? In this case, it's telling you where something is taking place or took place, right? If there was a giant accident, they're telling you, well, it took place on that bridge, so be careful, don't go there right now. Or it's going to take place at the downtown area. Go down there if you want to be a part of this. Why? Why is an explanation for something? Why is something happening? And how? It usually describes the manner in which something occurs. We were going to talk about um, adverbs of manner is the idea of how. So we're going to look at this, and then we're going to go back through and kind of look at, did they follow the inverted pyramid? Did they tell us all the important information right up front? Okay, hang on a sec. Okay. The Biden administration will, for the first time, send controversial armor piercing munitions containing depleted uranium to Ukraine, according to a document seen by Reuters and separately confirmed by 2 US officials. The rounds, which could help destroy Russian tanks, are part of a new military aid package for Ukraine set to be unveiled in the next week. The munitions can be fired from US Abrams tanks that, according to a person familiar with the matter, are expected to be delivered to Ukraine in the coming weeks. One of the officials said that the coming aid package will be worth between 240 million and 375 million, depending on what is included. The value and contents of the package were still being finalized, the officials said. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So this is an article from the Globe and Mail. It was printed on September 2nd, 2023, and the headline was US to send controversial depleted uranium munitions to Ukraine. Okay, so looking back at our main ideas, who is doing this? Okay, well, you can see here real quick, grab my highlighter, grab the same color so I can kind of show you who is basically the Biden administration. So the American government right now. What are they doing? Well, they're sending munitions to Ukraine. Depleted uranium, if you're not sure, uranium is used in nuclear warheads and stuff. So it's kind of important that they're being sent to Ukraine where there's war. Okay. When is it happening? All right. Well, let's see. Well, you can see they did, in fact, get to there pretty quickly. When is it happening? It's set to be unveiled in the next week. So they aren't necessarily sending it next week, but they're going to be talking about what they've definitely decided. Okay. Where is it going? Well, it's going to the Ukraine, right? We already kind of know that Ukraine, and it's being talked about in America, but Ukraine is where it's going. Why? Why is this happening? Doesn't, oh, actually it does. Look, why? The rounds which could help destroy Russian tanks. That's our why right there. In other words, they want to help them fight the Russian war. So why are they doing this? Because they want to help them fight it. How? How are they doing this? Well, the munitions can be fired from the US Abrams tanks that are expected to be delivered to the Ukraine in the coming weeks. So rounds, armor piercing munitions. In case you weren't sure, munitions, they basically just mean bullets or larger types of firearms. These are going to help destroy Russian tanks. They're going to be coming from the US Abrams tanks. So now I want to point out, sorry, this last little bit is our part that's not necessarily as important, right? If they had to cut this out because they needed room for an ad or room for a more important story, they could, and it would not affect our understanding. Okay. So slightly more important is that this is going to cost 240 million or between 240 and 375. Not nearly as important is it's still being finalized and the White House didn't respond to a comment, right? That could easily just be taken right out and it wouldn't matter. So you can see this article did follow the inverted pyramid. It put the important stuff right up top in the first two paragraphs. Okay. Here is another example of a news report. And hopefully this will give you an idea of how you can write your own, because that's what's going to be coming up. Okay. Powwow Idol includes Nova Scotia and Ontario finalists. You can see there's a nice little photo there of everybody at the powwow. August 4th, 2019. Two Canadian contenders are among the finalists in Powwow Idol, an online competition to find the best unsigned First Nations drum group in North America. The competition is in its 9th round, and a tribe called Micmac of Millbrook, Nova Scotia, and the Chippewa Travelers of South Central Ontario are still in the running. They are competing against a group from Maine, the sole American-based survivor of 12 drum groups, which entered the competition in January. The competition combines the digital with the traditional. All the groups have competed with victory or veteran songs, fancy shot or fancy feature songs, two-step songs, and a round dance. All the performances are online as audio files, and the judging is also over the internet. A tribe called Micmac has been playing together for just over a year and decided to take a chance when it entered Powwow Idol. Michael Stevens, 27, the group's drumkeeper, said he doesn't know why they've done so well in the competition. Everybody has their own unique sound and their own unique way of singing, Stevens told CBC News. Each drum is special in its own way, I guess. So we are very fortunate and blessed we have made it this far. Their Facebook page is flooded with good wishes from supporters in their Nova Scotia community. They are passing on their experience to even younger musicians on the Millbrook First Nation, among them Justin Stewart Muse, 10, who was at a recent practice session. It's awesome. It's smart. It inspires me to think good thoughts, he said, as the group pounded a traditional drum with one hand and squeezed their throats with the other to help them hit the high notes. Chippewa Travelers are a Northern-style drum group who started singing together in 1998. The more than 15 members come from Rama, Sarnia, Alderville, and other Southern Ontario communities. They'll find out late Sunday or early Monday if they move on to the final round of the competition. A winner will be announced in early June. Okay, so this is our assignment. We read that, and now they want us to answer questions about the report. What is the purpose of this news report? Is it to persuade you, like to convince you of something, to inform you, or to entertain you? Explain your answers. You have to pick one of those three and then explain, using evidence from the news story, why you think your choice is correct. Who do you think the intended audience is for this news report? Okay, again, this isn't going to be in the news story. They want you to think about who would be interested in reading a story like this. It's a one marker, so it's really just looking for one sentence. Number 3, the most important questions a good news report answers for the reader are the 5 W's and the H. Using the report that we just read, complete the following: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Please make sure to put those in full sentences, not just a one-word answer. Okay? So, for example, what? I wouldn't just say contest. I would say it is an online digital contest that I would explain, right? So we're looking for maybe several sentences, because there's like 1, 2, 3, 6 things, a sentence or two that is really good, that thoroughly explains what is going on. Okay. Now, after you've done that, you'll have kind of a better idea of how to write one. And that's what they're going to talk about too. The assignment 12 is writing a rough draft. It's worth 27 marks. This is one of our bigger ones. Okay. So this is one you'll want to take a little bit more time with. The following is another example of a news report. This one has been highlighted to show the different parts of a news report that you will need to include in your own. The details are on page 42. City's third bus fatality, headline. So you will need to do a headline. This tells you where the story happened and the date. So Ottawa, July 27th. Yesterday afternoon, a pedestrian identified today as Joe Johns was fatally struck by a bus while crossing Bank Street near Walkley Road. He was running with an iPod when the accident happened. Okay, so yesterday afternoon, it's telling you when it happened, who it happened to, what happened, right? Again, here's more of the where, even more specific, and how it happened. So they managed to put a lot of information in just those first 2 sentences. Michael Andrews, an off-duty police officer, was first on the scene. Andrews reports, I gave him first aid and emergency teams arrived here quickly. Unfortunately, we were unable to revive Joe Johns. It is believed that he died on impact. Witnesses were left in shock following the accident. Amy Anstey was driving east on Walkley when she witnessed the accident firsthand. I will remember that for the rest of my life, she sobbed. I felt helpless as I watched him run unknowingly into traffic. Johns was a single father of 2 teenage girls and lived in the Alta Vista area. John's friends came forward on a Facebook memorial site today, leaving messages like, John, you were my friend, may you rest in peace. And many respondents cited John's tremendous compassion. You were there for my family when I was sick, and I will be here for yours. Bank Street was closed last night for 2 hours while officers investigated the accident scene. It appears the bus driver had followed all traffic regulations and that Johns had tragically run into the traffic. Okay, so that's our sample. You have probably noticed the following. The headline announces the story. Okay, you need a headline. The lead is written in bold. I don't know if is that really always true? It might be. This is how they want you to do it though, so that's how we'll do it regardless. It starts the news report and announces who, what, when, where, and why. A reader should be able to read the lead and not have to look any further to have the full gist of what happened. The lead should be no more than 1 or 2 sentences in length. Now, they can be complex or compound sentences, right? They can be very detailed, but it's supposed to be just 1 or 2. Aim to be concise. Concise is like short, efficient, I guess. Not just short for short's sake, but very precise. And clear, do not use a lot of words. Who was underlined? What is double underlined? Where is a thin squiggle? When was the thick squiggle? Why was the double squiggle? And how was capital letters? Okay. The dark gray highlighting indicates a quote from a witness. As the report continues, the information gets increasingly less relevant. I wouldn't say less relevant, I would say less important. Okay. This is called the inverted pyramid structure of writing. Now that you've seen a couple of examples of what a news report should look like and what it should contain, it's your turn to try it out. You're going to be using the writing process described on the next page to write your own report. Follow the steps on the next page to create your rough draft. You will be putting the final touches on it in assignment 13 that follows. Make sure you refer to the checklist on page 44 and use the rubric on page 46 to help guide you in doing this writing. This rubric will be used to evaluate your news report later on in the unit. Okay, so this is the writing process. There's pre-writing or the planning. In this stage, you gather and you generate ideas. That is your big job. Okay. The main goal is to get the ideas flowing and put them down on paper. Mapping and brainstorming are two types of pre-writing activities. Anything you do that gets ideas down is fine. The biggest problem I find people have with this is they're too critical of themselves. They start going, oh, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. Don't worry about whether it's a good idea or not. For this stage, write down all your ideas. You can always pick which are the good ones afterwards. If you're too critical, it kind of means you sort of freeze and stare at the page and you're afraid to write. Next is drafting. In this second stage, you will begin the actual process of giving shape to your ideas by developing a rough outline and writing a first draft, or the rough copy. The words and phrases from stage one are put into sentences in this stage, but usually these sentences will need some refining. In other words, these may not be your final. They're kind of putting the ideas into a rough sentence, but you may polish them up a little bit. Revising. In this third stage, you will look over your piece of writing to make sure that the ideas flow smoothly and that the entire piece makes sense. Changes are then made to improve the piece of writing by adding, cutting, replacing, and reordering words, sentences, paragraphs, whatever. If a computer is used, text can be easily changed using the many features of WordPerfect, Microsoft Word, Google Docs, whatever you're using is fine. And it makes it very easy when you're doing it with a computer usually. Editing. Okay, a lot of people think of editing and revising as the same. They're really not. Revising is still big picture. You're looking at the sentences and whether everything makes sense. Editing is more the smaller stuff. You're looking at your spelling, your grammar, and your punctuation. This is the first time that you need to worry about these details. Now, a lot of times we just do that as we go along. That's fine. But if we get too focused on it way back when we're drafting, sometimes it can really get in the way of doing the writing because you get too focused on everything looking perfect. Okay. Doing it any time before now is unnecessary because the text of the piece of writing may change, and also because it can lessen the creative process. It should be noted here that proofreading with editing is checking for any typographical errors in the final copy. So after you edit it once, you're probably going to need to go back a second time and just kind of go, okay, is there anything that I've missed, right? Finally, publishing. In our case, publishing isn't, going to a bookstore. Publishing is, at that point, you're sending it to me. The final stage can be as simple as writing a final copy of the piece of writing or producing a copy on a computer using whatever word processing program you're using. Or it can be as complex as submitting it to a magazine for formal publication. Either way, the main issue is that you will be creating a final copy for a potential reader or a wider audience. It's important to note that writing is not a 1 to 5 stage process. Many of the best writers have to do numerous drafts and many revisions before they're ready for the editing stage. The number of drafts and revisions a writer does is no reflection of his or her writing ability, and neither will it be for you. The other point is it's not necessarily like a straightforward thing. Maybe you do some, hang on a sec. Maybe you do a bunch of ideas here, and then you do some drafting. And then as you're revising, you're like, oh, wait, there's a whole topic I didn't discuss. I better go back and think of some more ideas. And then you do a new paragraph. And then you look at it all over again and revise it a second time. And then you may work on your editing. Okay. These 3 steps are really important. Don't worry about the order necessarily, but be willing to go over them as many times as you need to get the writing to the level that you want it to be, okay? Okay, this is the checklist they were talking about, okay? After you've done your writing, is the headline short and does it catch the reader's attention? Yes, kind of, no. A date is included in the report. Yes, somewhat, or no. An appropriate who. Is it obvious who the story is about? Yes, somewhat, no. I think this is obvious, but I'm going to say it. If your answer is somewhat, try and fix it so it ends up in the yes. And obviously, if it's the no, we want to fix it. This is what we're looking for. If you're wanting good marks, we're looking for yeses all the way down, okay? The what, when, where, and why are correct. and or they make sense. The how demonstrates understanding of the event. The quotes are thoughtful and appropriate to the event. The level of detail demonstrates considerable understanding of the event. Okay, so here are the steps for this assignment. Okay, choose a topic for your news report. For this particular assignment, you're going to use any of the events that you thought were newsworthy in chapter 1 of Jimmy Comes Home. You will have to make up some details, but you should be able to use any information provided by the novel to come up with answers to your 5 W's and your how. Your topic will become your headline. You can use juvenile offenders back in town as your headline or choose something else. Okay, so you're going to choose a topic, create a headline. Okay, this is 2 marks. Number 2, news reports often have photos to visually show the event being reported on. Draw a picture or locate a photo or other graphic in a magazine or newspaper from the internet that could appear with your news report. Okay, 5 marks for that. Figure out which details you want to include. Remember that you may have to make up some of the details. This is a news report and we're reading a novel. It may not have all the details that a news report would have. Like it gives the exact day, so that you would have to make up the exact day. Okay, your report will have at least one quotation from someone in the story, and you're going to use the quotation marks. So I don't remember if we've talked about this. Quotation marks on a computer just look like little lines up top, and they enclose it. If you're writing, you kind of more curve it as if it were a 99. Oh, and here you go, kind of backwards. Okay. And it just shows you that whatever is in those quotes are the exact words that somebody said. If they aren't the exact words, don't put them in the quotes. Now, in this case, we're creating a news story. So if Jimmy has something specific or someone else has something specific that you want to quote, that's great. If you want to make something up, that's fine as well. Okay. But do try and use the chapter as much as you can for details. Figure out which details you want to include. Oh, just did that. So for example, Jimmy's grandmother commented, "I'm so happy you're home again, Jimmy." All right. Number 4, write a rough draft or a rough copy of your news report. It must be 1 page in length, handwritten. Do not worry about the fine details, the spelling, the grammar, and the punctuation right now. You can take care of that when you are preparing for your final copy, or which is assignment 13. For now, just focus on getting your story down on the paper using the inverted pyramid structure and ensure that all the elements are present. I am going to emphasize here, do not get stressed out if you are not happy with it the first time through. It is the rough draft. You have plenty of time to make it better. Don't get stressed out by making it wanting to be perfect right out of the gate. Nobody writes perfectly out of the gate, not even professional writers who get paid to. Okay. So here's my example of brainstorming ideas for the news report. In the novel, for example, maybe they've already got the teen names and the ages. They may have listed what the charge was, major versus minor injuries. This is not based on Jimmy, by the way. This is just kind of my example one. If I do the Jimmy one, I think it'll be too much. So I'm kind of using an imaginary novel. Added details are the parts that I need to make up. The names of the residents who saw the accident, quotes by the residents, the number of accidents that happened on that corner. So where you can, try and use the novel. Only make up the details when you can't use the novel because it's just not listed in there. That's fine. But use the novel first to show me that you did read the novel, okay? So here is an example of my first rough copy of a news article. And again, this is not based on Jimmy Comes Home. Teens crash recklessly. Josh and David drove themselves into a ditch. Both teens tested above the legal alcohol limit. Josh suffered major injuries. The driver, David, sustained minor injuries. A local resident, Doris Smith, said, I suddenly heard the most horrible sound of tires breaking and then the metal crashing. Another neighborhood resident added, "There have been too many accidents around that corner. They should lower the speed limit." The police confirmed that there have been at least 12 accidents on that street. So this is just my rough ideas. I can already see like, A, it's not really long enough. I haven't explained enough. I didn't put people's full names or how old they were or really explained what was going on. Right here, I kind of forgot to put quotation marks. So, but once you got your ideas around, it's way easier to kind of fiddle and fix things up once you've got the rough ideas down. So don't be afraid to just kind of dive right in there and put anything down. Here is an imaginary picture of the photograph. This is just taken from the internet. It is not mine. It's just imaginary for this assignment, right? I wouldn't want to claim this as mine if I was actually writing a real news report, because that would be considered dishonest and plagiarizing. If you're also skilled at drawing and wanted to draw something, you could draw something. That's fine. Okay, quick review. Check everything over and make sure that you've got all these parts. Headline, date, who, what, when, where, why, and how. This part should be in the first couple sentences. You got to get in there right away. Have some quotes, add some details. This is just kind of talking about everything we just talked about, basically just kind of a quick review. Right, one page. I did talk briefly about this, but I'm going to talk about it one more time. Revising and editing are not the same activities. Sometimes students get confused by this and it causes them to get lower marks. A lot of times kids will write a rough draft, then they'll go through and fix spelling and they think they're done. If you do that, you will have missed a major step and you will not get very good marks on your good copy. Okay. So just kind of talking about that before we go any further. Revising is making significant, like major changes to your rough copy. You might add more details to your sentences. You might be adding more sentences to your paragraphs. You might move sentences around to make the meaning clearer. You might cross off sentences that are redundant or like that give you information you've already used or that you don't think is important anymore. You might choose more interesting words. You might modify sentence structure so they don't all sound the same. One of the big things with student writing is sometimes everybody uses the basic sentence where the noun comes first, like the dog ate the cat, the door was closed, the car ran away. After a while, it sounds funny. So we are going to be talking about how to modify sentence structure so that you can write more complex and more interesting sentences. Editing is really just minor stuff. You're correcting the spelling mistakes, you're fixing any punctuation errors, you're checking for grammar errors. That's really all you're doing there. Okay, I am going to just touch on this and then we will kind of review it on tomorrow. One thing to think about as we were revising is sentence structure. It can be very easy to fall into the habit of only writing in simple sentences. One way to avoid this is to reread your paragraphs, specifically looking for ways to join sentences to create compound sentences. You can also look for ways to add information or join sentences by creating complex sentences. I'm not going to look at the video right now. We're going to tackle that tomorrow. I am going to briefly share this little chart. We'll talk about some more tomorrow. When you're doing a compound sentence, all you're doing is joining two simple sentences together using these words: for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So it spells out fanboys at the front as a way to remember it. Okay. Then, if you're writing a complex sentence, which is a little bit harder, and we will talk about it, complex sentences use subordinating conjunctions. And there are a lot of them. This is not by any means all of them. This is some of the most common ones that you will see. After, although, as if, because, before, even, how, if, since, supposing, though, unless, until, when, where, while, and whether. Okay, so that is going to be a major focus of tomorrow, is talking about how to write more complex sentences because most of us talk in very complex sentences, but then when we go to writing, sometimes we kind of freeze up and get afraid to write as complexly as we speak, because we get focused on spelling and doing everything right and all that kind of stuff. So we are going to tackle that. Let me just see what's okay. So tomorrow we will tackle going through how to revise things. Just going right back up really quickly. Here are all the ways I can be reached. Okay. It's right there at the beginning all the time. This is the assignment sheet for lesson 2. There were 5 assignments. Lesson 1 assignments should hopefully already be done. If you have not finished them, please try and finish them and get them sent down to me by fax or by email so that I have something to mark and can give you an idea of how you are doing. Okay. Thank you so much for coming here today. It was wonderful having you guys, and I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow. Thank you and good luck with all your assignments.